Introduction. Volume 25 continues the decisive battle arc. The peaceful Supered village becomes the center of a war because Hitagame's side has finally moved its strongest pieces toward Rudius and his allies. Rudius understands that this is not an ordinary battle. If the enemy breaks through here, Ruijerd, the Supered survivors, and everyone connected to Orsted's plan could be crushed. The enemy force includes names that sound almost impossible to fight. The North God Alexander Kalman Roman III, the former sword god Galfarian, and the ogre god Malta. The main question is simple but terrifying. Can Rudius's alliance survive when several world-class fighters appear at the same time? This volume is mostly battle, but it is also about reputation, pride, heroism, and what it means to protect people when every plan begins to fall apart. Event 1. Someone notices something is wrong. The transfer magic circles and communication tablets stop working, cutting Rudius's side off from easy movement and support. The sudden silence is frightening because their whole strategy depends on fast communication. Rudius immediately understands that the enemy may have found a way to isolate the Supered village. Scouts and allies begin reporting movement from the kingdom of Baerl. A strike force is advancing toward the village, exactly as Geese wanted. Around the planning table, the mood changes from preparation to emergency. Rudius must protect civilians, while also preparing to face legendary warriors. The first stage of the battle is not sword against sword. It is the enemy cutting off options and forcing Rudius to fight on unfavorable ground. Event 2. The village prepares for war. Rudius gathers Ruijerd, Eris, Roxy, Sylphie, and the other fighters to decide how to protect the Supered people. The Supered survivors are not just background characters anymore. They are the people at the heart of the conflict, and their future depends on this defense. Rudius knows the enemy wants to force him into panic. Instead, he divides responsibilities and tries to use every ally's strength as carefully as possible. Eris prepares for close combat. Roxy and Sylphie support with magic. Ruijerd stands as the symbol of dead end, and Rudius takes the role of battlefield commander. Even before the first clash, the emotional stakes are clear. This is not only a fight for survival. It is a fight to protect the name and future of the Supered tribe. Event 3. The enemy commanders appear. The invading force brings not only soldiers, but terrifying individual champions who can change the result of the battle alone. Alexander Kuhlman Roman 3 steps forward as the North God, confident, proud, and eager to prove himself. His presence immediately raises the danger level. Galfarian, the former sword god, appears with a colder and heavier aura. For Eris, this is the kind of opponent who represents the peak of swordsmanship. The ogre god Malta also enters the battlefield as a massive force of raw power. Rudius's side is not facing a normal army. They are facing living disasters. The confrontation makes one thing obvious. If Rudius misjudges even one opponent, the battle could collapse instantly. Event 4. The battle begins around the Supered village. Soldiers advance. Magic flashes across the field and the defense line is immediately tested. Rudius uses powerful magic to disrupt enemy formations, but the enemy champions keep pushing forward. Ordinary tactics are not enough against opponents of this level. The battlefield becomes chaotic as different fights split apart. Each ally has to survive their own opponent while still protecting the wider line. Ruijerd fights with the calm of a veteran, Eris burns with intensity, and Rudius tries to watch everything at once while knowing that he cannot control every corner of the fight. By the end of this opening clash, the fight has already become bigger than expected. The village defense has turned into a battle between legends. Event 5. Rudius is thrown into disaster. During the chaos, he is separated from the main battlefield and ends up at the bottom of a ravine connected to the earthworm's territory. The fall is brutal, and Rudius is badly hurt. For a moment, the great commander of the battle becomes just one injured man trying not to die underground. Doga is also caught in the situation, and the two have to survive without the full support of the others. Their isolation makes the situation feel desperate. Rudius realizes that if he cannot return, the battle above may continue without one of its most important pieces. Every minute underground matters. This section changes the rhythm of the volume. While armies clash above, Rudius must first win a smaller battle against injury, fear, and the ravine itself. Event 6. Rudius finds a shot at victory. Even injured and trapped, he begins turning the ravine from a prison into a chance to surprise the enemy. His damaged arm and strange demonic power become part of the solution. Instead of giving up, he adapts his body and magic to keep fighting. Doga helps carry the burden, giving Rudius enough space to prepare. Their teamwork is rough but effective because both understand that survival comes first. Rudius slowly rebuilds his confidence. The enemy may have knocked him down, but they have not removed him from the battle. By the end of this sequence, Rudius is ready to return. The comeback begins not with a grand speech, but with stubborn problem-solving in the dark. Event 7. Eris faces Galfarian. The Mad Dog King stands before the former sword god, and the duel becomes one of the most important personal fights of the volume. Gal represents the old peak of the sword god style. Eris represents brutal growth, instinct, and the will to protect the people she loves. Their swords clash with overwhelming force. Eris is not fighting for rank or pride. She is fighting because losing would mean letting the enemy through. The duel pushes Eris to her limit. Every strike carries the weight of her training, her years away from Rudius, and the strength she promised to gain. When Eris holds her ground against Gal, it proves how far she has come. She is no longer only Rudius's protector. She is a warrior capable of standing among monsters. Event 8. Kalman Roman 3 clashes with Kalman Roman 2 and the others. This fight carries the weight of family, title, and the strange pride of the North God line. Alexander Kalman Roman III wants to prove himself as a hero, but his idea of heroism is twisted by arrogance and the desire to shine on the biggest stage possible. Kalman Roman II and the allied fighters try to contain him, but Alexander's mobility and confidence make him extremely difficult to pin down. The battle becomes less about simple strength and more about experience. Older warriors understand things Alexander still has not learned. Even so, Alexander remains terrifying. He is not just a reckless youth. He is a genius-level fighter with enough power to make recklessness deadly. Event 9. Dead End joins the fight against Kalman Roman III. Ruijerd and the others step in, turning the battlefield into a test of teamwork against overwhelming individual talent. Ruijerd's calm discipline contrasts with Alexander's flashy confidence. One fights like a veteran who has survived centuries of war. The other fights like someone desperate to become a legend. The combined pressure forces Alexander to take the fight seriously. He begins to understand that Rudius's side is not a collection of weak followers. Even when surrounded, Alexander keeps finding angles to attack and escape. He is dangerous because he can turn a single opening into disaster. This sequence shows why one-on-one strength is not the only answer. Against monsters like Alexander, coordination becomes the only way to survive. Event 10. Rudius returns to face Alexander directly. After surviving the ravine, he steps back onto the battlefield with pain, damage, and determination all written across him. Alexander sees Rudius as the opponent who can make his name shine. Rudius sees Alexander as a threat who must be stopped before more people are hurt. The fight becomes magic against speed, planning against talent. Rudius tries to control distance, while Alexander keeps breaking through the space between them. Rudius is pushed to use everything he has: his prosthetic arm, heavy magic, battlefield awareness, and the trust he has built with his allies. The duel is not clean or heroic. It is desperate, messy, and dangerous, exactly the kind of fight that proves how costly victory can be. Event 11. The battle turns. Rudius and his allies finally force the enemy champions into retreat or defeat, but the cost is visible across the battlefield. Galfarian is no longer the unstoppable symbol he once was. Eris and the others have shown that even legendary titles can fall before resolve and teamwork. Alexander is forced back, unable to achieve the glorious victory he imagined. His dream of becoming the perfect hero begins to crack. The ogre god Malta sees the result of the battle, and begins to understand that continuing to fight may not serve his people or his honor. By the end of the main fighting, the village still stands, but everyone knows they survived because every ally carried part of the burden. Event 12. The survivors rest. After so much violence, the story slows down and lets the wounded breathe, mourn, and count who is still alive. Rudius is physically exhausted and emotionally shaken. He survived, but the battle reminded him again that even careful planning can collapse in seconds. Roxy, Sylphie, Eris, Ruijerd, and the others help treat injuries and comfort the people around them. The aftermath is not glorious. It is painful and human. The supered people begin to understand that they were not abandoned. Many outsiders risked their lives so their village could continue to exist. This rest period matters, because it reminds the audience what the battle was really about. The goal was never victory for pride. It was giving people another sunrise. Event 13. Rudius makes peace with the ogre god Malta. Instead of turning every enemy into a corpse, he looks for a way to end the conflict without creating more hatred. Malta is powerful and intimidating, but he is not simply evil. He has his own reasons, his own people, and his own view of honor. Rudius speaks to him carefully, trying to create a settlement where both sides can step back from destruction. The conversation shows Rudius's growth. He is not only a magician or fighter now, he is also someone who negotiates after the fighting ends. Peace with Malta turns a battlefield enemy into a possible future contact. It is a small but important victory for Orsted's larger plan. Event 14. The armor moves in the shadows. Away from the temporary peace, the story shifts toward Batagati and the terrifying fighting god armor. Geese is still working behind the scenes for Hitagami. Even when one battle ends, he is already preparing the next disaster. The fighting god armor is not just equipment. It feels like a living symbol of the next threat, something that can turn a single fighter into a catastrophe. Batagati's connection to the armor changes the mood of the story. The enemies Rudius just survived may only be the opening act. This interlude makes the victory feel unstable. The supered village survived today, but a much darker battle is already assembling beyond the horizon. Conclusion. Volume 25 ends with Rudius's side surviving a battle that should have destroyed them. They face the North God, the former sword god, the ogre god, and an invading army, yet the village still stands. Eris proves herself against a legendary swordsman, Ruigerd protects the supered future, and Rudius survives disaster through strategy, stubbornness, and help from his allies. Alexander's desire to become a hero becomes one of the volume's most important emotional threads. His strength is real, but his understanding of heroism is still incomplete. The victory brings rest and temporary peace, but the fighting god armor interlude warns that Hitagama's greatest move has not arrived yet. So Volume 25 closes as a hard-earned win before the final storm. Rudius has protected the village, but the true decisive battle is still waiting in Volume 26.